Hey, everybody. I'm Chad Davis, the Chief Media Strategist at Nebraska Public Media and co-founder of Public Media Innovators. Welcome to our June 2026 webinar. Very excited to have the folks from PBS News with us today to talk about Reddit. They are reprising a session that they did from the PBS annual meeting in Austin. And Amber and I saw it and we were like, we got to totally get them like on the webinar. And like we cornered them the hallway in the hotel a little later, and here they are. So we very much appreciate that they agreed to kind of come and talk with us all and tell us a little bit about how they are using Reddit. Quick thank you to our friends at NITA who help us in promoting these webinars, and also just a bit of housekeeping. Our webinar for July is going to be on July 16th. It's going to be one of our collaborations with Current, and we are going to be looking at the topic of AI policies. So I think there's a link that's going to be in the chat at some point. You can pop over to that, but it'll be published in other places as well. So without any further ado, I think I'm going to hand it over to Dan. Dan?
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having us, and really excited for this. I'm going to share my screen here just so we have the right thing here. Hopefully everybody's seeing. Yep, looks like everybody's seeing the presentation. Our text issues seem to be all fixed. But thanks so much for joining us. We're going to talk about Reddit. I'm Dan Cooney. I'm the social media producer coordinator at PBS News. I manage the core social media team. We program to Facebook, to X, to Instagram, to Reddit, to TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads. You name the social media platform. Our team really works very hard to make sure that all of our good journalism from PBS News, Washington Week, Horizons, Compass Points all gets out to our millions of followers across platforms. Vanessa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. I'm really here filling in for Travis Dobb, who is at another conference today, but I've worked with Dan and Travis for a long time, and Reddit has been around for a while, but we're seeing new growth there, so we're excited to talk about this. I work on all parts of our digital strategy, really, but I work with technology and supporter programs and emerging platforms. So thanks for having me. Hannah, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Hannah Grabenstein. I am a general assignment reporter at PBS News. I've been here for about 5 years this go round. And I sort of elbowed my way into doing this because I like to use Reddit to promote my stories. And I have had some pretty strong success there, and something that the three of us often talk about. So.
Absolutely. Hannah's one of our star reporters on Reddit, sharing her stories, engaging in the subreddits and in the comments. And so we wanted to highlight that as part of our overall really good work at PBS News on Reddit. So without further ado, King Charles visited Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago, and as part of our usual news coverage process, we clip videos from his speech to Congress, and got that out as well as streaming that across our platforms. As part of that clip cutting process, the team was able to get a couple of those up onto Reddit. That's in one place where he made some news. This was one of the clips we put on Reddit. He talked about executives being subject to checks and balances, which was a hugely newsy video. Wanted to get that out to as many places as possible. So I posted that video on Reddit in the law subreddit specifically. You see a GIF of that playing here in the presentation. Didn't want to play the whole video, but you get a flavor of kind of what we publish there. And that video on the law subreddit went like semi-viral. It got 6 million views and 53,000 upvotes. That was to date our most viewed piece of content on Reddit. 15,000 shares, 2,100 comments. And that speaks to the power of Reddit in making news and information available in places where there's great interest or there's interest in the topic specifically, because it had to do with checks and balances that made it very topical for the law subreddit. So that was a huge win for us. And so that also helped us build community around not only that piece of news, but also our PBS News brand. This is a place, we're a place that you can trust for this kind of content. And, on Reddit, we try to be a authoritative voice and a place where people can come to learn more. It built community, it built brand awareness, and it built a lot of engagement in this one bite. And those are all things that we want to do as social media and engagement professionals. I would ask who here is on Reddit, but I invite you also to share that in the comments if you're there personally or professionally. We'd love to hear who's using Reddit and how you use it. Think of Reddit like a bunch of cocktail parties. Each subreddit has a shared interest, and each subreddit has rules or decorum or lingo or inside jokes or acronyms. And it's kind of a place where you don't want to like just start, making your own rules. You will kind of want to see what the community is about. So here's an example of where that's come into play. We as PBS News will often post our videos in subreddits, but in some subreddits, there's rules. How much you can post during the day, what kinds of posts you can post. Do they allow native video? Do they allow just YouTube links? Do they want you to self-promote? Which, as a news producer, that's a lot of what we do. We're promoting the work that we're doing. I note in that second bullet there that posts can be links, text, pictures, videos, or what are called Ask Me Anythings. That depends on the subreddit, though. Some subreddits allow for, a variety of these kinds of posts, but some don't. Some just want links. Some just want videos. Some just want text. Some don't allow AMAs unless you're the official AMA subreddit where that's all it is AMAs. It's a highly engaged audience, though, for all the rules and all of the decorum about Reddit. It's really highly engaged. We find a lot of traction to our stories through Reddit. It's got 121 million daily active users and 471 million weekly active users. So you're going to find a lot of people who are interested in various different types of topics going to Reddit to engage about those topics. So whether it's news, I'm a member of the hamburgers subreddit because I'm always curious to see photos of people's hamburgers that they've either cooked or had at various restaurants. I'm a member personally of various book subreddits. I engage a little bit in some news subreddits personally, but I see that pretty regularly as a mod for the PBS News account. So it's from news to politics to law to professional subreddits to teams you follow. As a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, I'm in the Buccos subreddit, so like that is a place where I can engage with my fellow fans about how good or usually very terrible the team is. So it's just it's a great place to kind of engage in that kind of fandom. There's more than 100,000 of those various subreddits. So yeah, lots of cocktail parties to be a part of. And there's potentially untapped audiences as a part of your work as audience engagement professionals and digital producers. So I'll go to the next slide here. So wanted to show a little bit about how we use Reddit. This presentation was mostly on video on Reddit from annual meetings. So what I have here is in this slide is mostly video. We're mostly publishing news events, so items from congressional hearings or items from, you see on the upper left there, the President's State of the Union address. In the bottom right, you see Governor Abigail Spanberger of Virginia, her State of the Union response. We have items from the Jack Smith hearing when he testified. I believe that was early this year or late last year. We try to also get our own reporters' work. You'll see in the bottom left a post about Representative Al Green speaking to reporters after being kicked out of the State of the Union. That was from our White House correspondent, Liz Landers. And so we want to make sure that we highlight that work as well. Law, politics, Congress, those tend to be PBS News's bread and butter topics that we publish about on Reddit. But, it's not just that. We're also publishing about health. We're publishing about science. We'll engage in those subreddits as well, various subreddits, whether that's public health or science or health. You can see in the bottom there, the public health subreddit is where we posted about Senator Cassidy quizzing the then Surgeon General nominee Casey Means. And we'll also publish in our own PBS NewsHour subreddit, which I will get into a little bit later.
The law subreddit loves us, and I love them. It's amazing.
Absolutely. They provide an enormous amount of engagement and upvotes and comments. They engage quite a bit there. That is a highly, for lack of a better term, a highly engaged group of people who want our content, who are interested in what we have to offer, and we appreciate viewers like them. So it's good to see. I'll also note a couple of other ways that we use Reddit in addition to video. So I mentioned AMAs. On the left, you'll see a post where PBS News, and we're trying a bold experiment. Late last year, we've done Ask Me Anythings in the past. I'll share some other examples in a bit here. But we tried a really big experiment where we paired a regular Reddit text-based AMA with a video component, a live stream component. And so we're taking questions asked in Reddit and we're sharing them with our hosts on the live stream on YouTube, and then taking those videos, cutting them, and sharing them back onto Reddit to answer Redditors' questions about communicating science and fact-based information in a polarized and a world filled with misinformation in this era that we're in. Hugely successful experiment. We'll probably try it again later this year. And I think we had like some close to 14 or 15 guests all together over several hours doing this AMA. So hugely successful experiment, and we'll keep at it with that. We also do more traditional AMAs. You'll see in the bottom right, I just spent my first year as a free man after being convicted and incarcerated for 23 years for a crime I didn't commit. We spoke several years ago with the subject of a PBS NewsHour podcast called Broken Justice. We did 2 AMAs with him, one right after he was freed from jail, and one year after during 2020 and lockdown. Those both went viral, were like on the front page of Reddit for a time. It's about bringing really unique and really interesting stories in an interactive way. Sure, people listen to the podcast, and that was a highly engaged podcast and got a lot of listenership. This was a way where we could take the stories that we've been producing and add some interactivity with it, add some engagement aspect to it, and bring viewers right to Ricky so he can answer their questions, and Sean O'Brien, his attorney at the time. Another couple ways we use Reddit is we have really good relationships with mods of various subreddits. And so in the middle, you'll see the politics subreddit. Oftentimes, when there's a big event happening, like the State of the Union, they'll create what's called a mega thread, which includes links to all kinds of different coverage of various of that event. And so at this point, without asking, they'll just include our PBS NewsHour. The mods will include our PBS NewsHour coverage, which is really awesome to see that we're such a trusted source for not only the mods and that subreddit, but Reddit in general, that they will just link to our coverage. So you can see in the red arrows linking to our PolitiFact, our PBS NewsHour coverage. We include some PolitiFact live coverage of the speech. our special live streamed coverage on YouTube, whether that's Trump's State of the Union, a direct floor, our anchored coverage, a direct floor feed of the speech, and live ASL interpretation coverage of the speech. And we also have they also included our live Q&A of major takeaways from the speech afterwards that we streamed. The last example I give of how we use Reddit has to do with the PBS NewsHour subreddit. Now, I will note this was not something that we as NewsHour created. This was created by somebody else, and they invited us to be a part of the community and mod the subreddit. And so we work with others in that subreddit to not only share the work we're doing, but also there's a PBS latest bot that shares the latest stories from the NewsHour website onto that subreddit, and we'll also post videos there from time to time. It's one of the there's a lot of viewers and a lot of interest in that subreddit, and so it's kind of a sandbox. We get to kind of play in there and work on engagement strategies with our audience there. Vanessa, anything to add there? Or?
No, this is good. No.
All good. And so how have audiences responded to this? Those stats you see there, more than 108 million views in the past 6 months to our posts. That's not just video, that's text, that's link posts, that's comments, that's everything. Just in 6 months here at the NewsHour.
Views in Reddit are closer to impressions than actual views, but yes.
That's right.
Reddit doesn't give you video views per se. It's more like an impressions number.
That's right. That's right. It's a how many eyeballs saw this versus like how many views of the video were actually seen. We also saw more than 650,000 upvotes in those 6 months. So that's the quantitative data. The qualitative data is we get a lot of comments about how much they appreciate PBS and PBS News, how much they appreciate the work we do. You can see some of them over here. Here, can we all take a moment and thank the people at PBS for doing an incredible public service? We've also had some people talk about in the comments, I've stopped my subscriptions to Netflix or various other platforms, and I'm taking that money and donating it to PBS. So there is a huge amount of potential for reaching viewers, new and existing, in Reddit. And so could not more highly recommend using this as a really cool engagement tool. Sometimes we jump in the comments as well to thank viewers for their kind words, to offer help or feedback. Did that last week. One example being there was a live stream that we put out there of there was a camera at the Kennedy Center. Viewers were very interested to see the changes happening there on Friday, whether Trump's name would come down that day. There were some court challenges happening that same day. And we were able to engage in the Washington, D.C. local subreddit and share a link there. Viewers were very interested in seeing that. And so we engaged in the comments a little bit when it comes to that news story. Hannah also, who's joined us here, engages with her stories on Reddit. We'll share, hey, I'm working on such and such story. Tell me about your experiences. We'll work with the mods and with the community at large in the subreddit. Hannah, do you have anything you want to share about that?
I do. I really like using Reddit. I think it is the most weirdly like the most polite and least cruel social media network to engage with people in. I also think that people who are involved in a specific niche are very invested in it, and so they are aware of often what the jargon is or what the nuances are to that specific topic. I've done a lot of reporting recently on student loans and the ways that student loan repayment options are changing and student loan debt is increasing. So I've been very active in the student loan subreddit and have had a handful of posts there that have had really to my like in my history, like really successful engagement. And I feel good about it for a lot of reasons. One of which is that I know that the public service journalism that I'm doing is going to the intended audience. People who are in browsing the student loan subreddit are interested in student loan repayment. They have student loan questions, and my stories are directed to those people. So I know that it's reaching the people who need to read it. Um, I am really active in Reddit, like in my own personal life, and so I'm very comfortable with using it. But I have a separate, obviously have a separate subreddit for my NewsHour posting. I'm PBS NewsHour Hannah, which I created before we rebranded to PBS News, and I just looked back the other day to see if I could change my handle, and I cannot. So I'm stuck with that forever. But it allows me to, I think, be like to like be clear, trustworthy. Like I am obviously who I say I am. There is no anonymity there. And it also allows me to give out my work email and my signal and like all kinds of like less anonymous ways to connect with people. I found sources on Reddit. I was literally just last night talking with somebody about a student loan story that I'm kind of hoping I can pursue via Reddit direct messages. I have done a lot of like interacting with people if people read my stories and they're able to ask me questions about them. Obviously, there's so much that I can't include in my stories, but there are plenty of like additional pieces of information that I have. People can ask me questions, and I feel like I'm able to sort of continue reporting the story out that way and sharing it with people.
I do
That's some of my Reddit use. Sorry, Vanessa.
little traffic spikes occasionally from Hannah's activity on Reddit as well. And I sorry if you mentioned this, Hannah, and I missed it, but I wanted to point out that for local subreddits, Hannah has flair in some subreddits, and it can be really important for your experts, your reporters, to get some of that in local subreddits.
I also have communicated. I'm very cognizant of the fact that subreddits do have those rules that Dan mentioned. And so I do a lot of communicating with the mods. If I'm going to post asking for sources or if I'm going to post my own reporting, sometimes, especially if I'm just like a little wary of how it'll be received with my own reporting, I'll, reach out and be like, can I promote my stuff here? And always generally before I ask for sources, I check with the mods because I feel like I don't want like I've had sort of stories where I've posted where it's been taken down. They're like, we don't kind of self-promotion here, which is annoying. But I always feel that way when I'm looking for sources.
Reddit is definitely where I first learned about shadow banning. It was a long time ago. We all got shadow banned for trying to post our content on Reddit, so figured that out.
Times have changed
Do
since
they
then.
still do shadow banning on Reddit? I don't know. Probably.
I think so.
There is some shadow banning, yeah, that still happens. NewsHour posts have gotten taken down. We've gotten comments from mods at times like you can't post that here, sorry, or no, we don't allow that, or which is unfortunate, but that we want to make sure that we're mindful of the rules and mindful of respectful of the audience. It's not just about us sharing our work, but also just being respectful of what they're looking for as well.
Um, I don't mean to jump into the comments. We can go back, but Hannah, you should post an example of we're talking about a URL where you could see the flare.
I will do one of my most recent ones from the student loan. I'm really I like have a good relationship with one of the mods who's also one of my sources for the stories. So they flared me. One other thing that I wanted to say was that like I enjoy communicating with people on Reddit in a way that I do not enjoy communicating with people on Instagram or X or TikTok. Like, you put your stories and your face sometimes out there and people can be like just not as invested in the actual piece. And I really think that that is not the case on Reddit.
I'll get to it in a minute. I have some comparison numbers, but I mean, I think TikTok we get really great engagement too. Like we get tons and tons of comments. But obviously, it's much more detailed in Reddit, and it's not just one-liners. You can have conversations, so the engagement's much more valuable in Reddit.
Absolutely. And to that point, shortly before annual meeting, when we first gave this presentation, I actually, from the PBS News account, got a DM from a viewer they were like, I don't have anything much more to share, but I freaking love your program. I've been watching for years now, and I'm so thankful for the great work that you all do. So to speak to that politeness that Hannah was talking about, like we get that level of engagement and commentary, and it's really awesome to see, especially when we work in an industry where there's just some news is not the most positive in the world. So it's great to see that, and great to see that from our viewership, because there's humans behind the accounts and behind the admins. So I will head to the next slide. If you are interested in screenshotting, this is the one to do. Our recommendation is don't sleep on Reddit video. Create a user account for your station, as opposed to a subreddit. We don't recommend creating a station subreddit. You want to be engaging in subreddits like within your community. So for instance, the station where we work, WETA, engages a lot in like the Washington, D.C. subreddit because that's their local area. And they do a really great job of like pointing out things like history, and we also have a great archive of various photos and video from over the years. So they do a really great job engaging in various subreddits. They also have built their own subreddit, where they're building an audience and engaging with them there as well. We recommend engaging in subreddits that have been built up. Build relationships with subreddit mods. So DM them. Hey, we're so and so from our station or from this show. We'd love to be able to post here, or hey, we'd love to just start a dialogue. Would you be interested in anything we have to offer? As I noted before, contribute to established subreddits that match your community and your audience's interests, and engage with others' posts about you. Sometimes PBS News content that's posted to various subreddits doesn't come from us. It comes from other people. It comes from viewers. It comes from other people on Reddit. And feel free to engage in the comments. And if it's appropriate, upvote that to help it get seen more in the various communities where those links are posted. I also definitely recommend being respectful, editorially responsible, and nimble, because if there's something happening, if your work on Reddit is getting promoted, you've got a window where it makes sense to engage. Sometimes there are times where I've missed things, and a few days later I'll comment, but we'll get some engagement out of it. But there's really a window where it's most helpful to engage. So, you as a brand, and in managing your brand accounts, you want to encourage people to come enjoy your content. And so that's what we recommend when engaging on Reddit. And now I will turn this over to Vanessa.
Sure. Yeah. I just wanted to do some quick numbers, sense of what we're talking about on Reddit. I looked at like close to 90 days worth of posts, and Claude helped me pick out the video posts. We saw much higher views, reach, um, all those things from video posts on Reddit. Um, as you can see here, it was about 260,000 average views per video post versus 72,000 for link posts. 3.6, I think that's times more reach than link posts for videos versus articles. And I mean, we do have, it tends to be, as many platforms honestly seem like they're trending this way, but it's a little bit um peaky, like we'll have some big videos and then some videos will be smaller, but we are starting to see more middle of the road, which is kind of like what we like to see. I personally would rather have a platform. I mean, I want the numbers to be worth our time, but it's starting to even out a little bit, so we're seeing the kind of lower videos do a little bit better, which I think signals health for us. You can go to the next slide, Dan.
Oh, yep.
And then in terms of how it compares to like other platforms, um, um, sorry, we had some typeface problems, so some of the text is a little garbled, but so like I said before, views on Reddit are uh kind of closer to an impression. It's not like you don't actually know if the video is played or not, um but it's not just like it's a decent number. So we saw 57 million impressions over the last, I think this was 3 months. And then you can see what we did on YouTube and TikTok for that time period. I mean, there's been months when we've had, like recently, when we've had pretty big, several videos do really well on Reddit, where it's kind of come close to TikTok at times. And I saw just recently they started adding, you can reply in comments with video. So I just think Reddit is really starting to prioritize video more and more, and we've just seen really great engagement with it, and people sort of appreciate it there. The space is kind of open for it. It gives you, it's not a huge portion of our traffic. I mean, Google still dwarfs everything, but you do see, referrals from Reddit, which you don't see much of from YouTube or TikTok. So that's nice. It's nice that you can reuse the content with, no one really cares if you're just posting YouTube video or you just reuse your content and can do one clip into several communities at once. So it kind of helps you reach different types of people. Um, and yeah, that's kind of an overview. So I think that's the end of our presentation, and we could go into questions, right?
Yep. That's all. It's all there.
Great.
Tori has like 6 questions for you, Dan, in the chat.
There's a great amount of questions, and people feel free to continue to add all really good questions. I can read them off, and you all can answer. The first one that came in was from Zach from GBH in Boston, who's very curious if when your team has a web piece, video clip, etc., that you know will appeal to multiple subreddit groups, will you target the largest subreddit first and then repost to others, or originate multiple different posts that are tailored to the vibe of each group? And I imagine the rules within those communities. So what's your approach?
Good question. And hi, Zach. Good to see you. I look at it kind of from topics. So if we're doing a story about the Supreme Court, for instance, and I know that that's going to be of huge interest to the law subreddit, I'm going to get it there first. There's also a SCOTUS subreddit. There might be a Supreme Court subreddit. It may work well in politics as well. It's not necessarily that I'm thinking about it from an audience, like size of audience perspective. I'm thinking more about it from a topic perspective. There is some amount of audience consideration in there. Like, for instance, with the law subreddit, as Vanessa noted earlier, that is a very highly engaged subreddit for our content. They are very interested in what NewsHour has to offer. So we will make sure that we program there first, and then also go to the other subreddits, because, if they're not a part of the law subreddit, we also want to make sure that we put it in the right places for other audiences. Reddit calls that cross-posting. But I look at it from a topic perspective first.
That's great advice. And then just a quick, before we get into the details, how do you, was this like an organic thing that came about? Did you have a strategy for when you first started exploring Reddit? And how should local stations be thinking about that?
At least from my end, I had always seen PBS NewsHour content get shared on Reddit a ton. You'd see it pop up in Chartbeat. And I remember going to some sessions at like ONA or one of those conferences, or reading about, the power of Reddit. And I was like, we as NewsHour have a really cool opportunity here. I know we had also done some AMAs over the years, and so wanted to create a NewsHour presence. And so worked with Vanessa and with other members of the staff here at NewsHour, with Nick Masella, with Travis Daub, Sarah Just, our senior executive producer, to create that presence. And we used it for AMAs with Lisa Desjardins, with Amna Nawaz. We used it for AMAs with William Brangham, with the Broken Justice podcast, which I mentioned recently. And then we also used it sparingly as a link publishing platform. And then just recently, within the last few years, started in on the video aspect of it. And, we've seen that really take off. And so that's that, plus some of the current events that have been happening with public media, have really gotten us to a place where this is a really cool tool to engage with audiences in a whole different way than we ever have before.
Dan deserves a lot of credit here though, because we for a long time we've played around with it. Like we have some, ghost accounts floating out there where we're like, who owns that account? But Dan really organized it and kind of took it on personally in terms of feeding it a little bit more carefully, and engaging with there's a decent size NewsHour subreddit that was not started by us, right? Someone else.
Was not started by somebody else started it, but they did invite us to join and help mod it. So
Yeah.
it's been helpful.
So yeah, you should I saw a question in there about how you interact with mods, like if you have any tips on that.
I think, at least from my perspective, it's just, and Hannah also from her vantage point, I mean, it's just DMing, it's direct messaging the mods of various subreddits. You can, when you go to a subreddit, you can see on the right, there's a column on the right that says contact the mods. And that's a way to kind of just interact with them and say, hey, I'm so and so from this station. We're looking to help build our presence on Reddit. What recommendations do you have? Mods are volunteers. They are not paid to do this. They do this out of the goodness of their heart, most of them. And, they, I think, would really appreciate to hear from, stations and from publishers, rather than just going in like a bull in a china shop and just publishing your stuff. It's how can we best work on serving the audience that you have here? Or are you not interested in what we have to offer? And that's okay too. But there's a really great opportunity there.
I'll also add that mods are the ones who can add flair. So if you're looking to like make yourself look legitimate, they're the ones to message and be like, hi, I'm the real whatever. This is our real actual thing. And they might like ask for proof, but then in the end, they can give you a little thing that says reporter, PBS News or whatever. And that does come across as more authentic because it is.
Did you add that Flair example in the chat, Hannah?
If you go to the link that, yes, is the short
The student loan. Yeah.
And I have different flair in different subreddits. So like
it's the up at the top, if you click on her student loans link, there's a little gray and white flag next to her name that says reporter PBS News. That's the
different subreddits will deal with it in different ways. And so like sometimes they'll be like real reporter or like verified or just like anything to make it like real.
That's right. And we should note flair is very important in various subreddits, like you noted, Hannah. In the politics subreddit, I think we have a flair that just says PBS NewsHour. In underreported news, we have one that says news, like news station or like verified news station or something like that. There's also a way as NewsHour, we were able to get, similar to what Twitter had, a check mark that shows that we are who we say we are. And that also is another indication that we're verified. So multiple different ways. And I saw in the comments, I think it might have been Tori was talking about Reddit Pro. And we do have that. It does give us some analytics. Reddit's not as well built out in terms of analytics. It also does give us some information about like where our content is kind of being talked about. There is a page in which you can apply for that. I don't know what the parameters of that is or are at this point, but it is available.
I kept applying for it, and then I realized that we already had it. So sometimes that happens. I was like, why are they not getting back to me? I was like, I gotta find this guy at a conference. And then I was like, oh, wait, we had it. There's more tools in there that we're not using though too. Like I think there's a way you can like get more alerts around kind of like that I think it was Hollywood Reporter story that Chad shared. There's more you can do in Reddit Pro in terms of using it for finding content ideas basically that we're not doing a ton with at the moment.
There's a question from Tori in the chat asking, do you recommend that individual reporters build their own accounts or engage via the PBS News account? So Hannah, you have your example here. What are kind of your recommendations for others?
I just want to say, Dan, you are the one who is definitely the one to answer this question. I think I did it like without even really talking with Dan. This was like years and years and years ago. I just saw one of our like the person who had created the PBS News account was like, I just went back to see, was just linking my story out to other subreddits. And I was like, wait a second, I want to interact with this. And so I created one and I was like, I wrote this story. I'm happy to answer any questions. And then I was like, maybe I should be posting my own stuff. And then I was like, maybe I should talk with Dan about this. So anyway, Dan, you answered.
I would definitely recommend it. Kind of depends on bandwidth and resources. If reporters want to start their own Reddits or their own Reddit accounts and publish from those, it's their responsibility and do communicate with us. If we can be of service or of help in, explaining Reddit lingo or Reddit jargon or the rules of Reddit. But my view is always to kind of do like have a station subreddit or a station. I'm not a subreddit. I'm sorry, a station user account, and your team can manage that. If reporters want to create their own, they're more than welcome to. And many of them have seen success. Hannah is a great example of that from our team.
I will also add that the PBS News subreddit is substantially more prolific than my interactions. I don't really use it. It's not like a primary source for me. Like I don't go there all the time. And we are much more coordinated than we were in the past now. So I don't I was actually just going to talk to you, Dan. I was thinking about posting a call out on Reddit and like we have a whole system for posting call outs. And I was like, let me not do this. Like, let me go through Dan before we go about this. So while might have been a little chaotic initially, and that's my fault, we're like much more organized now.
I think it's a good area to experiment with though. I mean, as we think about trying to grow engagement on our side, like I would imagine, Dan, you should answer this, but I would imagine we would do both things, I think we'd want individual reporters engaging where they're experts, but we also may want to do more with our general account to weigh in more in comments and um, address things.
Absolutely.
But certainly like individual reporters editorially have more freedom to go a little bit deeper, I think, than we typically would as a faceless account. So
Definitely. The engagement strategy is emerging from at least from our brand account. Definitely. I would definitely recommend if you want your reporters to have Reddit accounts or if they start creating Reddit accounts, very similar to how, we all built for when reporters had their own Twitter accounts, some guidelines, some rules of the road. Here's what we recommend. Here's what we don't recommend. Here's what you should post about. Please keep in mind the standards of our organization. All of those things. Just some standards and guidelines would be highly recommended for individual accounts.
That's good advice.
yeah, do you answer Tori's question about volume? I'm not sure how much you're doing in comparison. I mean, obviously it's much smaller than YouTube, but do you want to answer that?
Definitely. I will say at this point, it kind of depends on the week and also like what's happening. So like this week, we haven't done as much posting, but we were able to get some stuff out from some reports that aired on the NewsHour. Our latest PBS News NPR Marist poll just published. So we got the top line info was Trump's approval rating on the economy. Only a third of Americans approve of his handling of the economy. So that made sense to publish in both the politics subreddit and the economy subreddit, where we've also seen some success. If there's a week full of, major congressional hearings, or, if there's like the State of the Union, we'll post more video. But it really depends on kind of the news of the week, and also what our bandwidth is on any given
But
week.
it's a very manual process. Like we don't have a centralized you use Reddit to post, right? You go to
Yeah,
Reddit.
yes. I will say it looks like, and we just hooked it to our Sprout presence. There is now an ability, if you have Sprout Social, to add your Reddit account there, and to, schedule and publish from there. So if you have that, that is something that's super helpful. Something we're still kind of experimenting and exploring with, though. So.
Well, that's good advice. Uh, there's a question about what are your thoughts on having Reddit as one of the visible share options on web-based stories?
I mean, I think that's a great idea. If you have that capability to add that to your own site, like, I think that's awesome, from where I sit.
Great. I was going to ask, you mentioned in your recommendations to others about the importance of engaging with posts, like going in and engaging with people. Do you have specific recommendations on how to do that? How do you choose who to engage with? There's related to that, how do you handle negative or controversial comments? What's your strategy around those?
It's a great question, and it's more of an art than a science, quite frankly. We do our best to engage with comments, especially ones where we think that there's a fruitful discussion to be had, or at least something that's helpful, or, more civilized. We're not going to generally engage with ones where the commenter is typing in all caps, or, there's some sort of, if there's something constructive or some feedback that they have, we'll acknowledge, hey, thanks for the feedback, or something like that. But we tend to be very choosy when it comes to engaging in the comments. And, that also goes through, like anything we publish. We want to make sure that how we engage, is over, somebody else also looks at it before we publish. I think that's just a normal part of our editorial process. So, it's something we're always playing with, always toying with, and trying to figure out the best way to handle. And we're always looking for the right comment to respond to as well.
We do respond from time to time if there's some kind of, we've had some incidents, and we will put out public responses to, corrections or certain events. Have I think we've put some corrections on Reddit before, like in comments and things, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we do something wrong, we do try and acknowledge that, and I think that helps with the audience too. That acknowledging that we make mistakes from time to time, and not just putting corrections on our website, but trying to spread that correction around to all the platforms that we publish. Not all the time, but from time to time.
Absolutely.
Smart. There's a question from Peyton. Have you utilized Reddit much for softer stories, human interest, arts, culture, and how have those performed?
We definitely have. Not as much, just because a lot of our coverage area tends to be politics and current affairs. There's been a lot of that in recent years, so no shortage of interest and topics to delve into there. But yes, when there's an opportunity to share human interest or arts, or especially arts and culture, because we have a vertical called Canvas. Those maybe don't garner the same amount, like the large amount of engagements, but you may get like better qualitative engagement than quantitative engagement with those kinds of stories. That's generally what I've seen. It's something that I think we as NewsHour can experiment more with on Reddit. But that's kind of where how I've seen it thus far.
I think providing, if you have video or, providing source material for conversation in specific subreddits is a good way to handle some of those too. I know, like the WIDA team posts photos and kind of like conversation starters in like local history subreddits and local subreddits, and I think they've had some success doing that.
One example I can think of off the top of my head is I think NewsHour, we as NewsHour posted some of our Olympics coverage from the show. Obviously, we're not the broadcaster of the Olympics, but we have things we can provide that maybe are of interest to the members of the Redditors in that subreddit. So, and I think we got some good engagement out of it. So it's something definitely to explore with the World Cup happening, and any other various, you know, arts, sports, culture stories that we produce and work on.
Great. For local stations who maybe haven't gotten into Reddit yet or are thinking about it, do you have advice for where to start or how to start?
I would definitely recommend at least starting like a Reddit user account. So, WIDA has the WIDA account. We have the NewsHour account. Figure out what your handle's going to be on Reddit and create that user account. At least, get that so that it's not so that you have ownership over that branding, over that account. You may not necessarily use it right away, but like use that time to kind of explore which communities you may want to be a part of, which map out a strategy. What do we have to offer that's timely, that's interesting to our audiences? Look at what's being posted in those subreddits. Is it video? Is it links? What do they allow? What don't they allow? Reach out to mods that you might be interested, like, if for WIDA, the Washington, D.C. subreddit, the Northern Virginia subreddit, the Maryland subreddit, the maybe there's the Washington Nationals subreddit if they have MLB or baseball content or items along those lines that relate to the community where they are.
And and importantly, when you're posting the content in those subreddits, think about not as a person who is sharing the content, but place yourself in the mental space of a person who is participating in the conversation. What about your content do you want to share? Like, don't just share like a link to the whole story, like share, engage in the conversation with a specific item that might be interesting, or like just make sure you put yourself in your headspace as like a active participant in the conversation and not just sharing it as a as a person trying to get people to click on it.
That's right. That's right. Marketing, like just naked marketing will not work on Reddit. They want to talk to a real person. They want an authentic connection with the brand that they're talking with. There have been numerous examples of AMAs that have happened, and Reddit figures out that it's not really the person they're talking to, it's their people or something like that. And Reddit can turn on you in an instant if they sense that there's something inauthentic about this. So that is really key in this in your work on Reddit. It's not just a place to just post links and do nothing after the fact. It's a place where you need to read the comments and like engage with the audience that's there. There may not necessarily be any comments, and that's okay, but it's a place to build community both quantitatively and qualitatively.
That's an important distinction. Yeah. We're almost at time, but I'm going to ask one last question. As far as time commitment, how much time, again, thinking from local stations who are maybe exploring this, how much time would you say you all spend dedicated just to Reddit or for getting started? Like, is this a full-time job? Is this part-time?
Ooh.
I think the reuse component makes it a little bit easier, but Dan spends a lot of time like having to think about what you have to write specifically for Reddit. So I don't know. You
Yeah.
go ahead and answer how much of your time you spend on this, Dan.
Um, as much as an hour a day. I wouldn't say that I definitely spend an hour every day, working on Reddit things, but it could be as much as, just because, hey, we've got a lot of stories that might be of interest to the Reddit audience. So let me spend some time figuring out like which subreddits to go to, where are we not where we should be. Um, how can I best, let me read some comments and see if there's a place where we can engage. Um, I think, once you get, there's definitely going to be a large amount of initial investment, but, afterwards you can, you can spend as much as 15 minutes a day or anything along those lines from a brand account perspective. Hannah, I'd be curious to know how much you spend as a reporter.
Almost never until I post a story. And then once my story is posted and I'm really trying to promote it, I will spend probably a handful of hours a day. In the initial, like I'll post it, I'll go away for a little bit, I'll wait for people to start engaging with it, and then I will return. I really, really like to interact with my audience and like the people who read my stories. It gives me so much joy. And also, I just feel like it's kind of part of my job. And so I will spend a couple of hours probably if there's like on the student loan one that I posted, I like to read what people have to say, and then I will go back and answer questions and also add context and things like that. But when I'm not actively like promoting a story, I'm on Reddit in my personal life all the time, but almost never as like me. I just remembered that I had my subreddit last night, so I was like scrolling through it to see what happened, but I probably hadn't been on it in like a week or two.
That's awesome.
That's great. All right. Well, we are at time, so thank you so much, Dan, Vanessa, and Hannah. Fantastic information. Can't wait, to share this out, the recording out as well. But really appreciate you sharing your expertise with everyone. Chad, anything you want to say to wrap up?
Just a reminder, our next webinar is going to be July 16th. It's going to be one of our pairings where we collaborate with Current. So, and again, I think the topic's going to be AI policies. So everyone look for the registration for that coming out while it's out. So you can find it, and it'll be in the newsletter when I publish that next week. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thanks so much.